Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154. And today we are following TIREDTEACHA 28-6 regular of the Big Daddy clan in their pursuit of the Object 279E personal campaign mission Coalition-11, Lord of Destruction. So why such a long video for a personal campaign mission, you might ask? I mean, we're going for as long as a lot of TV episodes. Well, the reality is Object 279E missions require more than one battle to complete. The primary and honours conditions need to be completed a number of times within a certain number of battles, thus attesting to the skill and consistency of the player. In the case of this mission, Coalition-11, Lord of Destruction, TIREDTEACHA needs to destroy the most enemy vehicles out of anyone in the battle, doing this 3 times within 9 battles for mission completion or 4 times within 9 battles for honours completion. To this end, we bring you a blow-by-blow account of their progress, which might take multiple fights for us to get there. So if taking a lot of kills is the objective, there are a couple of ways that one can approach this, either through high burst damage or through high alpha damage. Overall, these characteristics essentially allow you to round down enemy hit points to secure that kill. And while a high alpha gun might be able to use like a 750 alpha bomb to convert a 600 hit point enemy into a pile of ash, they are generally not strapped to the most gainly of chassis, which can impact your ability to respond to enemy movements and react to the battle generally. More to the point, that sort of capability does not really exist in coalition vehicles, specifically France, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Sweden, with the sole exception perhaps of the Tier 10 French tank destroyer Foch 155 that was made redeemable for bonds about 3 weeks ago, but that actually predated this particular replay. But these nations have auto-loading vehicles in ample supply, the key characteristic of which TIREDTEACHA is just demonstrating on this FV4201 Chieftain. The Czech medium tanks in particular are renowned for their ability to rapidly dump a magazine with a relatively short reload time to bring the gun back online. This particular example is the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T, which has the fastest mag dump of a coalition vehicle, releasing 960 hit points for just 3.6 seconds of exposure to the enemy. That's barely enough time for an enemy vehicle to lay their gun on target in response, and thus the sneaky Skoda can then slip away. This is something the Skoda T certainly has the ability to do, scurrying to a second line or flanking position where they can resume their harassment of the enemy's frontline fighters from a safe distance. An excellent power to weight ratio coupled with a 20 km/h reverse speed allows it to backpedal out of harm's way, while its 50 km/h forward speed is quickly realised and relatively unimpeded by undulations in the terrain to carry the Czech medium to its next fighting position. Distance is also not a major obstacle to effective play in Skoda T with a relatively fast base aim time of 2.11 seconds and a minimum 0.34 meters per 100 meters dispersion, both figures being relatively good for a Tier 9 auto-loading medium. 8 degrees of gun depression is also just enough to ensure Skoda T can fight effectively from a diverse range of map positions without overexposure. Turning our attentions to the state of play on the map, the team has deployed a 3-tank element on the beach, with Gramo of the Suits clan knocking out a seriously overextended enemy heavy tank, while the T-30 balances the enemy chieftain in the central bowl. The enemy Kranvan fights vigorously from its preferred hull-down position, damaging both the Stridsvagn K and T-30 in turn. Meeting the enemy concentration on the eastern flank, the friendly Object 279E, of which this personal campaign mission set is the subject, gets the drop on an enemy IS-7, with subsequent pressure forcing it to roll and forward and into the gun sights of an 114 SP2, WZ-55 and M53 and 55 artillery piece. Object 279E pushes its distinct advantage of firepower and armour forward, forcing an enemy Leopard PTA to nope the hell out of there before shutting down the IS-7. With 3 unanswered kills and what appears to be an undefended beach flank, the game has significant potential to run away for this enemy team. With the front line moving forward, thus the second line shall follow as TIREDTEACHA's Skoda T advances to the next berm, seeking targets of opportunity. They find the Leopard PTA damage from a previous engagement, and a rapid-fire series of high rolls is just enough to send them back to the garage. As TIREDTEACHA reloads, the team's chieftain advances, making an absolute fireball out of the enemy WZ-1114's ammo rack. Off camera, the team has seized control of the lower plateau, with the friendly Stridsvagn K knocking out the enemy VZ-55 and tightening the noose on enemy vehicles mid to round out the enemy 121V's hit points. Reloaded and ready to dance, TIREDTEACHA catches an enemy Object 430 in the open and destroys it with a little help from their friends for their second kill of the game, and tied with the Stridsvagn K for the most number of kills in this game. 8 unanswered kills thus far is an unmitigated disaster for the enemy team, but the enemy artillery piece is here to restore some honesty, knocking out the chieftain. But the balance of power cops a good hard shove, with the T-30 silencing an enemy 114 SP2 and the TIREDTEACHA charging forward to clip out the enemy Jagdtiger and take out the lead with 3 kills before setting their sights on the enemy Kranvan. Tired Teacher will need this kill to solidify their leads because the friendly Stridsvagn K has every opportunity to equalise still. The team descends on the remaining enemy Stridsvagn 103 tank destroyer and 212A self-propelled gun, with multiple vehicles making short work of them. Stridsvagn K has opportunity on the 212A but misses out, paving the way for Tired Teacher to bring this one home. But they've only brought 2 shells, flopping the first shot, and in their hesitation to make the last shot count, the Object 279E has provided the rounding error for Tired Teacher to take their 4th and final kill. So a bit of a raffle stomp here above the cliffs of Normandy, but it has given Tired Teacher their first step of progress in this mission. So that is a win for Tired Teacher 28 Seeks Regular of the Big Daddy clan in the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T50. For their efforts, they have not picked up any epic medals or Battle Heroes medals, but they have managed to come away with a level 2 mastery badge. That puts them in the top 20% of players in this vehicle this week. They have picked up the 5 for Effect medal for coming away with at least 4 kills. In this case, 4 kills is exactly what they've done. And they've also picked up the 5 for Effect medal, claiming nearly 3,200 hit points of damage upon the enemy team. Having a look at the team scores, our key metric here today is kill count, and overall they have come out on top. Only 1 kill inflicted by the enemy team, specifically the 212A that managed to knock out the chieftain, but I guess battles sometimes go that way. Having a look at the detailed report, this was a modest loss for Tired Teacher. We don't appear to have the clan boosters running at the moment, and it was a bit of a consumables bill here, but nevertheless they have come away with quite a good personal result, as well as that first step towards mission progress. Returning to attempt further progress on this mission, it hasn't been smooth sailing for our hero, as another 3 attempts at this mission have slipped by unsuccessfully, and Tired Teacher is now embarking on their 5th attempt. They find themselves top tiered on steps, again in the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T50. Now at this point it's probably helpful to look at other Tier 9 medium tanks of the Coalition that a player might consider for completing this mission. Notably, Skoda T50 has the lowest potential clip damage against some absolutely monstrous mag potential of the French autoloaders, but the major attraction remains the speed with which the T50's damage is released. Over the length of an uninterrupted burst, this equates to nearly 270 damage per second with Skoda versus around 130 damage per second with the Frenchies. Longer intra-clip reload means the French and Italian mediums need to remain exposed for longer in order to make equivalent use of their magazines. However, the higher magazine capacity does offer more opportunities to zero out an opponent from a higher starting hit point position. The overall damage per minute for Skoda T50 is also significantly higher, owing to a reload time that's roughly half that of the French autoloaders. Higher confidence of putting shots on target is also achieved by Skoda T50, which has generally superior accuracy, aim time and gun handling to its peers. And while slower by comparison, it is no less agile, boasting a relatively high power to weight ratio and high rates of turn on the turret and hull. Turning our attention now to the game at hand, our friendly convoy has landed themselves in a spot of bother by an out-of-roll overextension across the water body of the western ditch, while friendly and enemy forces alike begin to accumulate along the eastern ditch. Tired Teacher manages to get a shot off as enemy forces close in on the doomed convoy, but it would appear that Tired Teacher's team is severely outnumbered on this flank. With barely 150mm of effective armour facing on their turret, Tired Teacher's Skoda T50 will simply not survive a straight-up fight, and they retreat to try to play to their role by bleeding the enemy from flank or distance. The enemy Object 252U puts the final nail in Conway's coffin, clearing the way for the enemy team to continue their advance without a 5.5-inch surprise, although I'm told that 5.1 to 5.5 inches is average. Tired Teacher resorts to intermediate range standoff tactics, in the meantime playing off the rocks to provide a hard cover during reload or retreat. Spotting an enemy defender breaking from cover, its 867 hit points is certainly clippable for Skoda T50, and Tired Teacher puts a number on the board for the green team, but the enemy Lerva follows up for a knockout blow to the Panther 88. While it was initially bringing up to rear, the friendly VZ51 has joined the defence, complementing the Torn Van as another capable hull-down fighter. Edging the artillery piece to put some distance between themselves and the enemy advance, Tired Teacher cycles back to create a new second line, repositioning on the railway lines and scanning for opportunities to hole punch enemy vehicles as they advance on friendly heavies. Although attempts to draw a bead on the enemy Object 252U do not bear fruit, the friendly Coalition-11.3 alerts the team to an approach by an enemy AMX 1390, and a thorough clipping by Tired Teacher, and the Batchat send it packing before it can dump a magazine into the friendly heavies. Tired Teacher has drawn the interest of enemy artillery, who were possibly pre-aiming on the M53 and M55. Meanwhile, the enemy Char Future 4 has joined the beleaguered Western Ditch to shut down Tornbarn. Ducking below the rail embankment for cover, TIREDTEACHA retreats to find another second line, although with only one friendly heavy tank left defending the western front, TIREDTEACHA is soon to become the front line themselves. A knockout blow to the friendly Coalition-11.3 in mid gives the enemy a slight advantage overall, but these numbers do not speak to the tragedy of the Western Ditch, while a superior number of guns on the Eastern Ditch have just been acting too passively to effect a similar localised collapse upon the enemy in their backyard. Despite fighting bravely, the VZ-51 is left one-shottable and the enemy CS-52 Lease is able to round them out. Reaching friendly tank concentrations, TIREDTEACHA prepares a desperate defence, but very few assets have repositioned to counter the threat from the west despite the pressure and continue a passive and ineffective defence of the Eastern Ditch. Engaging the enemy EBR-75 FL-10, TIREDTEACHA ignores Skoda T50's mediocre turret armour to make use of their 8 degrees of gun depression, relying on minimising exposure of the tank and the physical size of the target they present in turn. Looking further to the eastern flank, we see the enemy thrusters had the bulk of the team in a lather the entire battle to the ignorance of everything else that's going on around them. By all accounts, the fight remains relatively evenly matched on numbers, with some evidence to suggest that enemy vehicles have taken a few hits in their pursuit of ground. But in this situation, with a strong base of fire, launching probing attacks that bleed more hit points than they inflict only erodes your frontline capability. Emil 1 makes its move, shutting down the friendly Caliban with the remaining shells directed into the friendly TL1 LPC for a case of 2 tanks, 1 clip. This just leaves the 53 TP holding the line, and an interjection of artillery fire prompts them to make a do-or-die attempt to knock out one of the rather one-shottable looking enemy vehicles around the corner. But the enemy IS-3A is the specimen of health, rounding the ridge topside to avoid defensive crossfire to engage the last remnant of forward eastern defence and send it back to the garage. With the scores now 4-8 in the enemy's favour, TIREDTEACHA continues their frontline defence, but has the enemy Object 252U and Char Future 4 bearing down. They attempt to thread their shells between the rail carriage bogies and knock out the French medium for their second kill of the game and putting them on the path to mission completion. TIREDTEACHA instantly goes for the reload in preparation for their next customer. Enemy vehicles begin advancing through the Eastern Ditch, digging out the team's eyeballs with a rusty spoon. Severely damage on the enemy Object 252U pays off as its residual hit points are within the capability of TIREDTEACHA's clip, but a low roll and a lucky escape allow the Russian heavy to live to fight another day. Seizing their chance to damage the Skoda on the reloader, the enemy EBR-75 FL-10 pounces, shelling TIREDTEACHA but not missing an opportunity to knock out the SPG. The AMX-65T falls almost immediately thereafter. As TIREDTEACHA presses up to exact vengeance on the EBR, the enemy Object 252U comes barrelling in but is destroyed by a shot from the lower frontal plate. It is Primo Victoria that cuts short the enemy EBR's tour de step. Only 2 vehicles remain on TIREDTEACHA's team, but TIREDTEACHA does stand a good chance of seizing the highest kill count and mission progress despite the tactical disaster of this game. This will be tested in a brutal crossfire unleashed upon Primo Victoria by the enemy IS-3A and Emil 1, with the latter equalising with TIREDTEACHA at 3 kills each. TIREDTEACHA prioritises Emil 1 accordingly, using their demise by his hand to cement mission success with the highest kill count across both teams, although may have missed an opportunity for a 5th by shooting the IS-3A instead of the one-shottable AE Phase 1. None of this changes the inevitable, however, and though TIREDTEACHA might have expected it from Lerva, it is Scorpion who renders him unalive for a 14-8 finish for the red team. So a bittersweet result here for TIREDTEACHA in the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T50. In spite of the defeat, however, they have picked up their first barrel mark as well as a high caliber medal accounting for at least 20% of the total enemy hit point pool, with nearly 4,700 hit points of damage inflicted. They picked up the Bruiser medal for causing damage to enemy modules or crew members at least 5 times in the course of the battle, and they've also picked up the Fighter medal for accounting for at least 4 of the enemy. Having a look at the team scores, with again a kill being the metric that we set, they've managed to eke out the enemy Emil 1 and taking that edge by actually knocking the Emil 1 out of competition. Turning attention to the detailed report, this battle was actually marginally profitable for them. Again, quite a consumables bill, and it was kind of by virtue of their achievements that they managed to just turn a modest profit. But, well, with a result like that, I guess we can't complain that we've actually made money. Rolling out for the 3rd battle of this video, we arrive in Ghost Town on TIREDTEACHA's 8th attempt now at personal campaign mission Coalition-11 for Object 279E. Again, they are commanding the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T50, however, this time from bottom tier. Playing in support of the Tier 9 French light tank AMX-30 and Swedish tank destroyer Stridsvagn 103, they uncover an enemy Leopard PTA while pushing through the foliage surrounding the beached ships. Tired Teacha's initial deployment was a little too far to the rear, however, and they are forced to close the distance in order to keep the target within render range. But we can't be too critical. The wisdom of the conservative deployment was sound, recalling that Skoda T50 doesn't have the best concealment characteristic in comparisons to its peers, and that the enemy has the benefit of a Tier 10 light tank XM551 Sheridan. And in terms of base view range, the enemy Sheridan sees a full 40 metres further than AMX 1390 and 60 metres past the Stridsvagn 103. It's also possibly armed with a 152mm gun launcher that could put a considerable dent in either of the vehicles contesting the western flank. But the enemy Sheridan has been spotted in the east, and this instills a lot more confidence that Tired Teacha and company can engage the enemy without risk of counter-spotting. Boxed into a difficult predicament, and perhaps not realising that the AMX had eyes on it the entire time, the enemy Leopard PTA makes a dash for the K-line, taking fire from the Conqueror before Tired Teacha moves in to apply Skoda T50's signature mag dump for 1, 2, and 3 hits. This delivers a tremendous repair wheel, but not quite enough to send it back to the garage yet. This outing has also revealed 2 enemy tank destroyers, and Tired Teacha collects a very nice handful of spotting assist on the enemy FV4W5 Stage 2. Oddly, these vehicles were not spotted by the AMX 1390 despite being a light tank positioned close to the target, thus they have moved to the very edge of cover to hopefully yield an unobstructed view of enemy positions. Time machining forward while forces clash on the western hills, the enemy team holds the topside advantage despite losing 2 tanks in exchange for a tortoise. Here in the east, it's quiet. Too quiet. But you can always rely on tank destroyers to shatter the peace, with blind fire knocking over 650 hit points off Tired Teacha. Lightning might not strike the same place twice, but you can bet a valuable body part that successful blind fire will, and thus Tired Teacha repositions before the VIII GFT's mates join the bombardment. Armed with the knowledge that a large caliber enemy gun is on the reload and therefore not a short-term threat, the AMX 1390 uses the opportunity to close with the enemy Leopard PTA and terminate it. Looking towards the centre of town, the enemy Conqueror is experimenting with the proxy spotting mechanic, although proxy spotting enemies within 50 metres works both ways, and with clear view from the hill they are unalived by the FV4W5. Nearby, a brutal exchange of cannon fire is unfolding, with T110E5 spearheading the attack for Tired Teacha's team. Unloading on an enemy Grille A15, the fight is also joined by an enemy E100 and a Chieftain dug into its preferred hull-down position. A poke to catch it on the reload does not yield damage, and T110E5 is forced to retreat, putting their rear into full line of sight of the enemy E100. Fortunately, their teammates can hold the enemy Chieftain in place as the E100 is distracted from another angle, with T110E5 taking full opportunity to relieve it of the last of its hit points. This hardly puts them in the clear, however, as enemy Object 257 presents a new threat of crossfire. The enemy Grille A15 also rejoins the exchange of fire, knocking out the E75, while the enemy Object 257 applies the finishing touch to T110E5. Adding to the carnage, the enemy Chieftain rounds out E100, while the enemy Grille A15 sends Concept 1B packing. Returning to the southeastern flank, the enemy Sheridan has made its appearance, and Tired Teacha moves to engage, providing the first bite of damage as it crosses the gully. A cheeky follow-up shot into the enemy tank destroyers doesn't find the mark, and Tired Teacha backs off to reload. As the Sheridan continues its advance to the southeast corner, AMX 1390 looses a shot towards FV4W5 with potentially disastrous consequences, as it's now a shot short of a clip and will not be able to finish off the enemy Sheridan, and that's despite an assisting shot from the Stridsvagn 103. Now, as it happens, the Sheridan is packing the 105mm lightweight gun and not the 152mm gun launcher, so it can maintain a more consistent rate of fire and more consistent chance of causing damage since the high explosive rework. Not that it matters though, because by the time AMX 1390 has reloaded, the WZ11.3 GFT has found its line. In other bad news, the enemy Grille A15 emerges from the exact same position as last time to mop up the T22 medium, while the enemy Object 257 catches a Conqueror on rotation. With an entry to the south untenable, Tired Teacha attempts an alternative flanking angle on the enemy Chieftain, but finds a well-angled hull and a well-aimed gun ready for them as they engage. FV4W5 brings the enemy Grille A15's reign of terror to an end, providing some breathing room for the Object 705A, which is now the last friendly heavy left alive. Tired Teacha goes for the reload again and makes a calculated decision on their hit points. With the last few seconds on the counter, they push forward again to find the enemy Chieftain in wait, and despite eating a shell, Tired Teacha clears it from the board with follow-up fire. Stridvan 103 also puts a stop to Sheridan's attempts to join the fight, resulting in an 8-all score equalisation despite the carnage that we've seen over the last few minutes. Taking a quick situational assessment now, we have a one-shottable enemy Object 257 in the town that the Object 705A could easily outtrade, but if challenged, the 257 could simply pull back to a position where they can get support fire from the hill. And despite controlling the western hill for most of the game, the enemy heavy tanks upon it have not had the juice to press into the northern side of the map. Stridvan 103 maintains good coverage of the eastern flank, although looking at the type and the position of remaining enemy vehicles, one would not envisage that they would take this route in an attempt to regain control of the fight. The enemy Centurion Mark 7-on-1 has also yet to be spotted, so caution needs to be exercised in approaching hilly flanks where it can play from hull down. This is especially true for TIREDTEACHA, who has used all of their offensive capital in the takedown of the enemy chieftain. Of course, it kind of had to die. But as far as the mission's concerned, TIREDTEACHA also needs 3 more kills, and that's half the remaining enemy team to take pole position on kill count over both teams, so there's almost no more margin of error left for them. Thus far, the carnage in the city has not provided many opportunities to put a new firing angle on the hill, but TIREDTEACHA was able to get the number of the AMX M451 thanks to some close-range spotting by the Leopard 1. But even a cat has a limited number of lives, and a slight overpeak causes them to catch 2 enemy shells. The enemy WZ111 GFT has also managed to give Stridvan 103 the slip in the meantime, powering through the city to catch Object 705A off guard, but the response is ferocious, with TIREDTEACHA bursting a full magazine into the Chinese tank destroyer, while the Stridvan 103 is relocated to add to its damage bill. The enemy Object 257 takes advantage of the confusion to attempt a crossing past FV405, making it through and hoping for a killing shot on Object 705A. They don't get away with it this time, and TIREDTEACHA rotates to box the Russian heavy in and remove it from play. 89 hit points is no match for the full Skoda magazine, and TIREDTEACHA pulls out as the enemy WZ rounds the corner in front of him. Rapidly backpedaling, they also escape flanking fire from the heavies on the hill. Despite the loss of Leopard 1, it appears that either Object 263 or FV405 were able to maintain vision on enemy hill heavies in their own right, cueing TIREDTEACHA to continue their crossfire from that sweet spot between spotting range and render range. They land penetrating hits on the enemy AMX M451 and take another bite out of VZ51 as a target of opportunity. The self-spotting ability of the tank destroyers is also quite fortunate, as TIREDTEACHA was about as well equipped armour-wise as the late Leopard 1 to keep up vision on those vehicles from close range, and is even more easily one-shottable. Let's also not forget that they need to take 2 more kills in order to claim their 3rd mission completion by being the top tank killer across both teams, and to get in front of the late enemy Grille 15's body count of 3. Another shot into VZ51 is followed by no further damage or kill opportunities, so TIREDTEACHA reloads the magazine anyway. Reappearance of the enemy AMX M451 creates a welcome kill opportunity, and although the first shot goes wide, the follow-through finds its mark, allowing TIREDTEACHA to equalise kill scores with the enemy Grille 15. Now they just need to claim 1 more enemy vehicle to satisfy the mission condition, regardless of the result of this fight. But this flank is where it's all happening, with both the enemy WZ111 GFT and friendly Stridvan 103 making a tactical rotation into this field of play. As TIREDTEACHA keeps watch for the enemy VZ51, the Stridvan 103 makes a slingshot orbit around the FV405 and heads up the enemy held hill. The enemy VZ51 appears to be making a run for it, and some slightly rushed shots by TIREDTEACHA only managed to cause some collateral damage to local infrastructure. Not that anyone was living in it, after all, this is supposed to be a ghost town. Stridvan 103 continues their pursuit, although I must say taking on a VZ51 and a Stridvan 103 is a pretty brave move. Consider that Czech Heavy's 122mm 2-shot autoloader can overmatch the 40mm plate of Stridvan 103, compromising its wedge-shaped hull regardless of angle. But what have they got to lose other than trading away 2/3 of their hit points for another kill on the board? But if their expedition has accomplished anything, it's getting eyes back on a target to which TIREDTEACHA has line of sight, and assists them to claim their 4th unalived tank and pole position on kill count. Object 263 certainly isn't wanting to miss out on opportunities, with their sieger of the hill giving them the drop on the enemy WZ111 GFT. That they were able to take that kill rather than Stridvan 103 is actually significant for TIREDTEACHA, as the only friendly or enemy vehicle in a position to knock him off his mission pedestal now is the friendly FV405, but that's kind of dependent on them coming up from the rear to destroy both remaining enemy vehicles, which kind of seems unlikely. Rolling south along the western hill, the Stridvan 103 and Object 263 find the enemy Centurion Mark 7-1, who's thus far managed to elude detection all game, but does not elude a 1,000 hit point clipping from TIREDTEACHA. The Russian tank destroyer charges into the fray using both gun and mass as a weapon, while Stridsvagn 103 sets up and delivers the killing blow. With the kill numbers now guaranteeing TIREDTEACHA's primary mission completion and only one enemy vehicle left alive, their greatest opponent now is time. Less than a minute left on the clock and too far away to effect a 3-cap win. They need to find and knock out the enemy FV4005 in order to avoid the draw. Surveying the K-line, TIREDTEACHA catches the FV4005 preparing an ambush to the eastern approach and lets loose. But with all 3 shots low rolling and the enemy 183mm gun rotated to bear, the pressure is on to land this kill in about as much time as it takes for this gun to reload. Fortunately, TIREDTEACHA is not alone in this sense of urgency as the Stridsvagn 103 launches an epic spear tackle and destroys the brick barn with just seconds to spare. What a fantastic result for the team and a sensational finish. This has also netted TIREDTEACHA the missions, so regardless of how they feel about coming away with honours completions on Object 279E, they have made progress onto that vehicle. Taking a look at the results here, we have a very well deserved ace mastery here for TIREDTEACHA 28-6 regular of the Big Daddy clan in the Tier 9 Czech medium tank Skoda T50. Surprisingly, no battle heroes or epic medals. I think you're a little bit robbed here on that one, but we have picked up quite a few badges of merit here. They picked up the spotter medal for accounting for at least 1,000 assist damage, in this case about 1,200 assist damage, likely a lot of that inflicted on the enemy tank destroyers earlier in the game. They've also picked up the Bruiser medal for causing 5 hits that cause damage to internal modules or crew members in the course of the battle. They've also picked up the Fighter medal for accounting for at least 4 enemy kills, and finally the Fire for Effect medal, which I reckon this has got to be one of the highest damages for a mere Fire for Effect medal that I've ever seen. They've done nearly 6,800 hit points of damage and not come away with a high caliber. Yeah, TIREDTEACHA, you were robbed on this one. Looking at the kill values again, they have come out top on kills, with closely followed by Stridsvagn 103 and Grille 15 on the enemy team. So very close finish here for TIREDTEACHA, but still coming away with the mission. Now, unfortunately, this was TIREDTEACHA's 8th attempt. The follow-up, the 9th, they did not manage to get the honours. But for Object 279E being like the ultimate goal of any aspiring tank collector, I guess maybe you can be prepared to overlook those honours missions and just focus on using your orders from the previous campaigns to push on through. So thanks very much for sticking around for this one. I realise there are probably episodes on the television shorter than this video. It's been a bit of a marathon, a real labour of love. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks very much for sending all 3 of these replays in, TIREDTEACHA. I know it started with the Ace Mastery, but I really wanted to see how you got to this point, and I'm thoroughly glad we did. Best of luck in Melbourne this weekend. Have a lot of fun. Say hi to the guys for me. And to all else, take care out there, and thanks for joining. Happy tanking.